Hey, how's it going? Timothy Darrell Young, USMCA, 15 years ago in the dorm, I'm officer for higher ed. Um, I during the Bush election, and that's when I first started getting remote neural monitored and tortured by the gang stalker, deep state, um, targeted individual list that was in part enabled by all of the mechanisms that were in place following the false flag or otherwise planned September the 11th, and then the Patriot Act that unfolded after that. Part of what was the result of all of that shit was a repeating pattern in history, now with more terrorizing capability of police state Zugstrig of a whole country. Mine started mind and body as a citizen 15 years ago. So misled by the tech that I thought it was mental illness. But anyways, yeah, like this has been done in former USSR and former Nazi Germany. Both countries fell apart with the same like community spy group manifestations that end up tearing a country apart. So 15 years ago, I'm in my dorm and my TV started talking like at or around me. NSA acknowledgement of surveillance. My computer started acting weird because it got hacked. And then I started hearing voices, and they never stopped. Yeah. I ski-daddled out of Eugene in a panic. Lived with my parents in Ohio for a while, finishing up my master's. And for a while, like the voices stopped, but the 24-hour cycle of ruining my life as a target of the beast system enacted through Tonka trucks such as the federal government, big social institutions like military, and huge social institutions I don't really understand that well, like the CIA and the FBI butt fucking each other under the guise of the Patriot Act and calling it good when it's American genocide. Uh, Anyways, so 15 years ago, this shit went down for me and never stopped. The disclosures that Kevin Christian's talking about that he's endured for like maybe 4 years, folks reading his thoughts, torturing him in his mind with repeated statements. Those are called satanic repeaters, home break-ins, theft of all kinds, all that shit has never stopped for me for 15 years. My aunt, my poor dear aunt, who had a defense attorney boyfriend in LA, she's been a targeted individual for many years now. She had voices for some time, home break-ins, street theater, people paid off to ruin her life. Gang stalkers like moved into the apartment complex or otherwise hired. It's my aunt. There's 1.5 million American targeted individuals like myself stolen mind, body, and they want your soul past one life. By Blackwater estimates out of a guy who got in on the perp end of what they're doing in Seattle and then jumped ship and took their numbers, and he's really paying for it. He's getting voice to skull in his head, not unlike Kevin Christian and I, working to expose these crimes against creations, war crimes, crimes against humanity, the beast system, literally. There's a lot of, should be a nonpartisan issue. There's a lot of Republicans. I used to be a lot more blue. I've been rendered conservative, but with like public finance was pretty conservative. But there's a lot of Democrats, but also Republicans that are TIs. There's a lot of black people, white people that are TIs. There's a lot of Jews and Hispanics. It's for me, like not being able to assess it with precision, like it's a slow kill mass genocide, and they're trying to hide the Nazis with like electromagnetic form perpetrating satellites and the infrastructure of the electromagnetic field around Earth. So I spend my days a lot in therapy, reading, writing, and now I'm spending a lot more time documenting both on Twitter, Facebook, and a website, my plight, and giving advice out to other TI and trying to learn from them. But yeah, my TI status happened 15 years ago, and the torture's never stopped. My aunt is being tortured. It's bad. And music therapy, a little indoor gardening. I don't want to get like an animal. Here's some of the indoor gardening that I do, is because for other TI and shit, like if you get a cat or a dog and stuff, they'll torture your cat and your dog. Is some of the shit that a lot of stuff, or a lot that goes along with targeted individual tactics. And yeah, it's been real tough. I've covered a lot of my last 3 years of becoming an aware TI, and the gang stalking that started for me in about 2006, and attempts on my life, surviving a mind-controlled suicide attempt. I was so delusional and misled. I thought I had an easy place to save you to, that didn't have a lot of the life conditions I had as a TI, but it was delusion or otherwise false, and didn't get a real good opportunity to discuss the Black Swiss cheese holes, which, if you do it right, opens you up to all worlds, not just a faked promise one from gang stalkers that couldn't provide. There's going to be a lot more experts, and then there's going to be a lot of people talking shit about the Black Swiss cheese hole exits after death, trying to keep human capital here. But that was not ever my intent, to keep you incarnating here. I'm more Buddhist than anything else. It teaches you to rely on yourself, not expect an external force to save you. But I've avoided getting suicided, which was some of the remote neural monitoring voice to skull attempts on me. I'm no longer homeless. I can remove myself from the hostility that's generated from the gang stalkers that hack all the communication systems on the cable, like cell phones, computers in the nut house. Kevin Christian was saying, in one of his interviews recently, that he just stopped using his Wi-Fi at his house. I'm able to take the APK files and shit off this cell phone before uploading, so that they can't modify the video content, worst case scenario. Otherwise, keep lying about it and designing tortures and suicides and things like that. I've made some friends in the TI community who are aware. That's been helpful. Maybe might even attend a rally. I mean, it's my main issue. The slaughter needs to stop, the slow torture, and I don't have all the answers, but I've thwarted some efforts for TI breaking up of potential working relationships through the internet. I want to say thank you and good work to Philip Walker. I was trying to help him recover some of his work that was stolen and website shut down recently. I have a bit of a headache right now. They're probably giving me a headache, but I spend my days here listening to music, talking shit or otherwise, being real mean to my perpetrators. Like Kevin said, all they need to know is my geographic location, and they can talk right into my head. But some of the talk is that because of the baby monitor that I have in here, they have to hear their own attempts at brainwashing. So it discourages brainwashing. I don't know if they're lying to me about that, but I've heard from other targeted individuals that the non-Wi-Fi baby monitor and radio on static are helpful in combating the synthetic telepathy torture and voices. I was able to record on a reflective surface of a pair of sunglasses that I was wearing avatar perp that was looking at me through a computer screen. And I wouldn't have seen it unless I knew about Kevin Christian's research about catching some of this EMF perping on reflective surfaces and then looking at the sunglasses I was wearing when I was making the video. So he's able to get that information out to folks. I plan on living a long time and want to help mitigate the torture or otherwise stop what Dr. Horton talks about, a global genocide. And they channeled through me information like perpetrators made me say, or I was brainwashed to say stuff. And I'm really stubborn along those lines. I mean, I haven't done the research on it, but there was something I read about like Agenda 21 or something like that. Like, first of all, it's not Christian to genocide, and they're specifically going after Christians. It's not just like you read about that in the foreign press and it doesn't happen in the U.S. They're specifically doing this to Christian like people in the U.S. and trying to hide it. And folks like me work every day trying to help out the plight of the TI and otherwise stay alive. I've had an electromagnetic form perpetrator show up as a cyclops in Tualatin. I thought my parents were fucking. This is how deceptive and misleading the tech is. I was convinced my parents were killed and replaced by reptilian aliens for months when I was homeless. Not true. I was mistaking probably drones from radio-controlled devices for UFOs sometimes, I'm pretty sure. I was so gaslit tactically and strategically. It was near lethal. I had electromagnetic form perpetrators following me to Utah, to Washington State, to Nevada, to California. I've been through so many perpetrated psychiatric facilities, it's hard to fucking count. But those are help to harm, like in a lot of ways, just to push you over the edge. They'll replace like staff seemingly before your eyes of the mental institution itself. It's pretty intense. I'm a little tougher than maybe I look. I really don't want to hurt anybody. Yeah, I sit around mostly, I think, just giving empty threats to perpetrators that shouldn't be torturing people, and have now successfully, I feel like, made progress on releasing information about the Black Swiss cheese holes. I feel like we all came through there at some point, and with the memory wipe system at the moon, you just forgot. They'll make it harder than it seem out to be harder than it really is to get out of here. And then like a joke we used to make about collecting qualitative and quantitative data in social science in grad school, it's like the question you ask somebody on a survey that you'll never get honest answers about. How many times a week do you beat your wife, was the social science joke about incorrect data and instrumentation and surveys and shit. They won't, the whole solar system won't collect data correctly on people that escape. It's against their interests and stuff like that. The planet is not mine to give or take. I don't want to be here or incarnate here at all. Like, I'm definitely planning to go back out the Swiss cheese holes and pursue my path of non-reincarnation entirely. There's some good stuff that Wes Penry and other talk about, the Orion constellation or nebula, discarnate and stuff. I don't think I want to do corporeal existence again. So that's some of my planning, and the information is circulating. They'll make it seem harder than it really is, and they won't collect the data right on Earthlings that escape the Luciferian solar system and go on to other incarnations. But that's my plan. So Philip Walker, kudos. Wes Penray, kudos. I can corroborate those Black Swiss cheese holes. I wish perps would stay away from me and my entire family and my friends. I'm meeting more basic needs and still alive at the beginning of April 2019. I want to live to be an old man and help out other TI in peer mental health education where they know that it's both mental illness and it overlaps with being a TI. Yeah, I think I'm going to be okay. What I want is the end of my perping, which increases my suffering like so much, rather than the general population. I don't want the world to be destroyed in a fifth interpretation of you fake the second coming and then they really destroy the world. It's if I could speak Latin fluently, what was, what is, what will be, I'm sort of at peace in a Buddhist way with this monstrous system that I was born into, and as I exit back out of it is my long-term plans to get out of incarnating and get out of the solar system. And my family's been great, but I was stolen mind, body, and they want my soul 15 years ago in my dorm room on Moss Street in graduate school off the State Board of Higher Ed, and the perping has never stopped. The voices have never stopped every single day for 15 years. It's hard to get across to the normal public just the amount of suffering involved in being a TI. Well, I mean, you can wrap your head around 15 years of torture, and that's what you're looking at. Me and too many others. So big ups or otherwise congratulations or kudos to Kevin Christian, Philip Walker. Deep Thought News seems to be still doing some research. When I was telling him that they were already breaking out the fake people, or otherwise electromagnetic form perpetrating around me, like, being able to make a cyclops in front of me, he was surprised that that tech was already being used stateside. David Icke's, been at the forefront of a lot of this shit for a long time. John Lear and Bob Lazar, I want to give a shout out to. My parents are wonderful. The University of Oregon is on their way to raising $1 billion in a charity campaign, and we'll have over $1 billion in an endowment soon. A wonderful accomplishment from humble beginnings in the late 1800s. Go Ducks! It's the 250th ranked university in the world, up from 18 spots from last year by U.S. News and World Reports, who have a lot of very trained academics combing their methodologies and otherwise. How did you rate that? How did you come up with this so it's not, total bullshit? And a lot of people go throughout their entire lives, work very hard, play the market, acquire a lot of capital, financial gain, live comfortable lives, and then make huge donations to their universities anyway. So for me, as a nonprofit, MPA-focused, really poor TI, because they keep us extremely poor, it warms my heart to see those donations come in from people whose lives weren't cut short in their 20s by systems that are so cowardly to this day. Like, I can't even reach out and kill somebody that's trying to design my suicide day in, day out. I mean, more or less. They've hijacked it. This gang has hijacked the televisions. Like, they're probably perpetrating Hillsborough itself in ways like I'm not even aware. And it's difficult. And people, like with Kevin Christian's disclosures, I have to recognize that people are sitting around on EMF machines and they're beamed right into their consciousness as if they were me, are experiencing. I mean, my body is like suffering from radiation and other torture from the inorganic crime against creation, even doing that. But as I'm sitting here talking to you in my nut house, they're experiencing life as me, as perpetrators. They can see out my eyes, feel it when I hit my knee in a store. When I have an orgasm or something like that, they feel that too. Kevin Christian's make a lot of sense for a lot of people. And he's tenacious. And he's got over 1 million hits, even being a TI and censored, and them stealing like subscribers and shit. Like, he's really doing an amazing job, I feel like, for getting the word out uh, and helping other TIs come forward. He's already done interviews. It's great. Dr. Phil picked up the plight of the targeted individual. That was a big deal in mainstream media covering this stuff because they make it so hard to articulate or otherwise tell other people about what's going on with you. Like, oh, Heavy T, there's another guy on Twitter that I'd really admired. He's been documenting this stuff um, also and explaining his plight. He had a lot to lose. His kids, his home, his wife, and the perpetrators have gotten him pretty bad. Um, I've survived barely, and these last 3 years have been some pretty intense psychological operations or otherwise trauma on me as one human being. I don't want the world destroyed, but I don't want you to have to incarnate here if you don't want to. And that's where the Black Swiss cheese holes come in. And I've had some success in like open source information distribution on that issue. But it's more important than anything else that I could ever do for any one of you is help you get the hell out of reincarnating here at and after moments of death, corroborated by more than just my merciful mission. Took 40 years to release the data, more or less. But yeah, and as troublesome as the internet has been in the human condition and all these complications I felt as a TI, people perping my mind and body, shit like that, finding my geography, shooting over a fucking faked reptoid or a cyclops off a satellite, shit like that. Black Swiss cheese hole exits out of reincarnation, that and after moments of death. Expect to have people, because like some of the stuff that I've read is that you're under mind control after, when that's going down. They're reading your thoughts. They know everything about you, like massive quantum supercomputing involved. They're throwing up fake images of your mom. You think it's your mom. It's not your mom. If you're really into Jesus, the image of Jesus is misleading you into that white tunnel, false light of reincarnation. Stuff I've experienced a lot since being a TI still alive in my meat suit for 15 years. The otherwise not felt brain-computer interface or otherwise false senses of love, where they use it for behavior modification and manipulation, and at moments of death could help mislead you into that white tunnel of light. I felt that alive already. I know what that's like already. They'll flood the human condition, the souls after they die with that overpowering sense of love, and then vacuum them up like so much human capital into the white tunnel of light to be reincarnated to the moon after a life review, and then you're just forced back here. It's some of the worst crime in the cosmos, and you get memory wipes so you don't know about it. So there's been a lot of prices I've paid for disclosing and being a TI, but that's the best thing I could do for any one of you. And took me 40 years to release the information. Yeah, and so I'll be 40 in June. 15 years ago, I became a TI, and I'm tortured every fucking day. So please pardon me for getting tortured into saying stuff I would never even say, or being taken out of context, or like, if you saw a deep faked porn of like me screwing your ex-wife, like, don't try to beat me up over it because I didn't fuck your ex-wife and shit like that. Like, it's been real horrible for me, particularly over these last 3 years, but I'm alive. I'm happy to make it to 40, and I'm learning more about the deception involved around targeted individuals and the manipulations of the human condition, specifically for Satanism. There's nothing redeemable about what's been done to me and 1.5 million Americans. We're not God individually, and our perps aren't God. It's a crime against creation for them to be in our heads, our homes, and our bodies. I've considered getting the headset so I can sync my body here and then project out of consciousness someplace where these guys can't talk to me. But I don't know even where to begin. I mean, the dark web I've heard about, you could get that shit from there, but that may help me live a longer life. Yeah, so this is a long 25-minute video. I'll go ahead and cut it off. But I love you guys sincerely out there, individually and as a group. I'm getting like brainwashed into racism from perps and shit. That's really not me, or otherwise something I would have been inclined to believe or born with. Every human being has dignity and value, and being a human is your best shot at non-reincarnation. And my humble universal understanding is your best shot at non-reincarnation is those black Swiss cheese holes also. So for as much shit as they talk about me, deep state attacks, Satanism lies, few words deceive, mind control, all that, set that aside. Black Swiss cheese hole exits in space after you die. It has depth in the fabric of the concocted space-time reality around us. And that's a long and short story of my life, my 40 years. I don't want you to suffer. I sit here getting baited into like empty threats in a lot of ways. Like I probably look like just a big asshole to these perps that are baiting me into anger, because it's like textbook boilerplate tactics used against the human condition and people that are deemed enemies of the state. They falsify evidence, they make up shit for reasons for making you an enemy of the state. It's all corrupt. It's a smokescreen. Everything ill that's ever been said about me in my life is a smokescreen to keep you from those black Swiss cheese holes. You can wrap that up in a big birthday fucking cake bow. Avoid moments of death, reincarnation at the moon, and expect to be flooded with love. Images of people you were loved that are faked in front of you to manipulate you. Images of gods or deities you thought you could trust, used to fake to manipulate you into the black Swiss cheese holes reincarnation. Expect to be, try to coerce you to keep you on like all kinds of guides or like, whatever people, entities, trying to keep the interest of the human capital here, and be disobedient as fuck, like Wes Penray and another man from India that's corroborated, even swimming past the rings of Saturn. Like, be a disobedient slave and hold your ground. And I will try to talk more about what I've experienced live under mind control systems that you may expect on your way out of the solar system also. And in that way, I Buddhist thank my perps, like thanked my enemies, like thank you for teaching me how to get out of a hell solar system, because you wouldn't, stop those tactics. So real Buddhist lesson there too. I've already thanked like my enemies, the 1,400 perps that have been in and out of my mind for 15 years. So it makes me ill. It's not good. I'm not enlightened. I've actually devolved. I felt like it's not good. It's illness, cosmically illegal. But at the same time, it's not just in my imagination, in my head, or wetware malfunction, or dismissible in a misnomer schizophrenia, or psychosis, or any of those terms you would associate with just stuff inside of me. No. Synthetic telepathy is what this is. And it's hell on earth.